right. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining another edition here. As everyone joins in, I'm going to try my best to keep track of questions in the chat room, and then I'm going to introduce our guys in a second. What I wanted to start out, I'm going to take if you guys could everybody mute, I just want to start out and take just a really quick personal moment, which will kind of like maybe go into the little quick video I'm going to share. One of my, man, this wasn't planned, but I'll go with it. My uncle, he's been one of my favorite uncles forever. He was diagnosed with brain cancer a year ago, and he passed away on Monday. And he went from being the most healthy guy ever a year ago to, and he passed away Monday. And I got to know him a lot better these last couple of years because he was investing with me, and I learned so many lessons from him. And I just needed to give a shout out to any family or cousins that might be listening that, our thoughts and prayers are with you. And it was really hard to, see him go away because he was such a positive influence in my life. And he always told me, he said, "Hey, man, I want to be your favorite investor and make it as easy as possible to work with you." And so I've really taken that to heart in any relationship that I have. I want to make it as easy as possible to work with me and provide as much value. And hopefully this is one step in the right direction. So along with that, I was watching a 30 for 30 last night with my son, and it was the Jimmy V video of the Jimmy Valvano, right? And so I was it was such a powerful thing, and I think it's so helpful right now. I want to get started off on this call with a positive focus. And so bear with this for 4 minutes. You guys are going to love it. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll jump right into the call. But I think this is a great way to get going and pump everybody up a little bit. Give me some feedback, because I don't know if I'll be able to see all this if we can't hear what's going on.
To tears, could be happiness or joy. But think about it. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special.
Every day I am reminded that our life's journey is really about the people who touch us. As of Sunday, I didn't even know if I'd make it here. I couldn't fight. The doctors and nurses could. People that I love, my friends and family, they could fight.
Through it all, I learned that true strength, isn't when you face down life's challenges on your own. It's when you take them on by accepting the help, faith, and love of others and knowing you are lucky to have those.
My beloved bride, Stacy. In the darkest of moments, we embrace and we pray. Please, don't leave me, she pleaded. We can fight this together.
Listen to what Jim Valvano said 21 years ago. The most poignant 7 words ever uttered in any speech anywhere.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
I can't ever give up because I can't leave my daughters. Coach Valvano didn't. So to be honored with this, I now have a responsibility to also not ever give up.
Whatever I might have imagined a terminal diagnosis would do to my spirit, it summoned quite the opposite. The greatest appreciation for life itself. So I will never give up.
I never imagined that I'd be able to be standing here 20 years after Jimmy V's speech and say that because of all the donations, research, and support, mine is one of the lives that's been saved.
500,000 people will die this year of cancer. And I also tell you that 1 in every 4 will be afflicted with this disease. We need your help. I need your help. We need money for research. It may not save my life. It may save my children's life. It may save someone you love.
When you die, it does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live. So live, fight like hell. And when you get too tired to fight, then lay down and rest and let somebody else fight for you.
I will live my life full of love and full of fun. It's the only way I know how.
Just.
Take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul. And those three things are going to carry on forever. I thank you, and God bless you all.
All right. Thanks, guys, for watching that. Hopefully that got everybody a little excited and inspired. And before we jump into the call, one thing that I find helpful every morning, and just everyone throw in the chat really quick. And yeah, Brandon, I'll share that link on everything. Quickly drop a positive focus. Like, what's one positive thing, one thing you're grateful for today? And we'll summarize and read them later, but go ahead and just think about that while we're getting into this call. Drop a positive focus, something you're grateful for, and we'll get this call started off with some positivity and go from there. Sorry, I'm doing one other thing here. Technical difficulties, hang tight. Well, Facebook Live might have to wait. I'm not able to figure it out in time. Anyway, we'll do that another time. Okay, cool. All right, let's jump right into this. Today I have Luke Watkins. You guys all know Luke if you're from Utah, and Lathe Lavada. If you guys don't know Lathe, you're going to get to know him. He's got a ton of awesome things to say. Quick intro to Luke. Luke's been investing in real estate for 10 years. He's fixed and flipped hundreds of houses and wholesaled thousands as well. Luke has worked with some of the biggest residential flipping companies in the country who average anywhere from 20 to 30 deals a month. His background is construction and property management. He has invested in Salt Lake City, Utah, Indianapolis, Albuquerque, and Dallas, Texas. Luke can talk about a bunch of different methods of finding deals today, as well as working in different markets and also working in kind of a virtual world and from his house. So Luke also wrote a great book. I read the book. Luke sent it to me. It's a great story about where he came from and how he got to where he is now. Lathe, I met Lathe when we were both at Strategic Coach. Lathe is out of Las Vegas, Nevada. He's the owner of First Prime Realty, and he has a group and he's also known as the Flipping Boss. Lathe is not only an accomplished real estate investor, buyer, and broker, but also a coach who helps aspiring entrepreneurs navigate their entry into and their success in real estate, with courses available on house flipping, wholesaling, and other topics. Lathe is a go-to expert on how to build wealth and take control of your life through real estate. So I've included their links, and I'll include them later about how to contact them offline. But anyway, we'll jump right into it. Luke and Lathe, if you guys don't mind activating your mics, we'll get going with some back and forth here.
Howdy.
Cool. Hey, Lathe, add to just quickly in a minute, like what I missed from your introduction and what kind of your temperature is there in Vegas these days, and then I'll have Luke do the same.
Okay, cool. So I'm basically I've been rehabbing for a very long time here in Vegas. I've branched out to about 7 to 10, give or take markets right now. So a lot of virtual wholesaling. I moved into virtual wholesaling over the past several years. I kind of saw something was going to happen eventually with all the markets. They were all losing a bunch of steam here. So Vegas was going up 11, 12%. And I saw it going to 4% increase, 2% increase. We were at nothing for a while. And then there was an estimated 1 to 2% increase. And so that's where we were here before this whole pandemic hit. So you know, I've been altering my business for the last several years. I like to joke that I've been practicing social distancing for probably my whole life, but, but
Yeah, you have. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, that's why I wanted to have you on. You've developed some awesome systems and stuff that we'll dive into here in a minute, man. So thanks so much for joining. And Luke, chime in really quick, and then I'll jump to my first question for you guys.
Sure, yeah. So no, I just want to say thanks for putting this on. I'm glad to be a part of this community. Such great people. I'm sad that I left the community, but there's a great group of people out here too. I've been primarily wholesaling and fix and flipping my whole career. Done a couple different virtual markets. We just moved out here for an adventure. And man, like in that video, I got a little teary-eyed because man, just living life, and that's what I'm doing. So grateful to still be able to work from home and do what I love. So thank you, Matt.
I love it. I love it. All right. Yeah, like to reiterate what Jimmy Valvano said, any day you can laugh, think, and turn your emotions into tears or whatever and live and fight like hell, right? So I think that's what we're all in for today, as well as definitely for the next 2 or 3 months, maybe 6 months, 12 months, right? So let's remember that every day. Lathe, let's jump right into this. You've been successfully wholesaling, doing real estate, really pretty much like you said, social distancing for years, right? Like to not necessarily go in for like 20 minutes on this, and we'll provide resources later, but if you could think of like your top 2 or 3, and then Luke, be thinking about this too, because we'll go to you right after. What are some of your top 2 or 3 or 4 techniques to working virtually and doing real estate deals virtually?
you know, it's funny because it's really no different than doing deals locally. I think I had a lot more success when I applied the techniques that I use locally to distance. It's just a matter of, you know, are you meeting them in person or are you not? So I guess the techniques is mentally, if I were to give one thing, you know, I like to talk in terms of overlays, right? So if you overlay some philosophies on top of what you want to do. So one of the things that I do locally is I had one of my real estate agents always go out to the properties to do inspections. And so we would set those inspections up with the homeowner before we ever got on the phone to close them, let's say. So we would do the intake, schedule the inspection, and then the agent would go out there, take pictures, send them back. We would get on the phone for the closing with that homeowner. And that was more for them than it was for us. Of course, if they're motivated, try to close them right then and there if they don't have any hesitations about you not being in the property. So it's not all too difficult to do that remotely. So if you're doing virtual wholesaling, if you want to call it that, you know, you need boots on the ground. So one of the things we've found very successful is working with agents in those locations to bring them on board. A lot of people would say, well, you know, get them to do that. We'll give them deals or funnel deals, and they should go do those inspections for free maybe. Well, if you'll find that if you pay an agent even $100, $150, that you can get them to do a whole lot for you. Even if you don't have access to the local MLS, you can actually work with that agent, get them to get the pictures for you, get on a screen share like Zoom, take control of their computer, because most of them don't know how to do proper valuations in their MLS, or even to tweak it out to do it very well. So just setting that up and overlaying what we did there, and partnering with those agents for boots on the ground. So that's one of the biggest things, because you need value and you need to see the pictures and you need to get pictures in order to market those properties. So I don't know how many tips those are, but that's pretty good ones. So.
No, that's great. So if I understood what you're saying, take what's working in the real world when you can go out and about and reverse engineer it, maybe figure out how you can do that without necessarily having to leave the house. And then especially now with COVID-19, figuring out how to safely have other people maybe help you, you know, do those tasks. And you guys will all remember Jason Lewis was on a previous call. You know, some of the other things he used late that you're probably using now too is like the 3D Matterport tours, or, you know, have the inspector go out, have that inspection done so that someone, you know, can use some of that information for when they go to look at the house or buy the house. And then I like what you said about using local resources, especially I want to have Lathe on because, you know, I know a lot of you are either doing deals in other markets and or looking to do deals in other markets. And so what's cool to see is you can do it, you know, just as efficiently in other markets as you can here if you just find the right people to put in place to get on the bus with you, right? Like, you know, like you're saying, overlaying it with people that are local. Luke, why don't you chime in really quick as well on that subject of,
Yeah.
especially as you
Thank
move
you.
to Texas, right? How have you been interacting with your Utah people and then doing Indianapolis? What are some tips and tricks that you can share as
Sure.
people
Yeah.
adjust?
So I took some good notes, and I'll try to be quick and to the point. Basically, if you know how to market for motivated sellers, you can pick that marketing machine up and drop it anywhere, right? So it was kind of similar to what Lathe was saying. Communication is key. You need to be able to communicate with your boots on the ground, and I'm glad you said that you need boots on the ground. Now, one of the issues we had when we first went into a new market, whether that was New Mexico or Indianapolis, is trusting those people, finding the right people. Yes, you need boots on the ground, but we turned and burned through a lot of the wrong people at first. So it wasn't as easy as probably maybe it is nowadays, because we were doing this 6-7 years ago. Where nowadays, you know, I feel like there's a community online similar to this and nationwide of other wholesalers, other investors. And I'll share a couple examples. Number one, if I'm still doing a deal or have a lead in Utah, I've built those relationships with this community so I can trust a handful of people and call somebody to go out there and A, look at it for me, B, close the deal, and do lots of different things for me. But the other day I had a guy here in Dallas send me a lead that said he needs help closing the deal in Oklahoma City, which is just up the road 3 hours. And I said, you know what? I know somebody that I've met online who's the big dog up in OKC. I'm going to reach out to them. And it was easy as sending them a Facebook message, asking them what they think about the deal. Hey, can you help us move it? And then we were on our way. So having boots on the ground, relationships, and adding value. When you add value to other people, that'll come back tenfold, right? So I don't know if that helped. But we're closing deals on the phone. That's where the communications and being able to communicate effectively is going to come in. I'm doing a lot of stuff through emails and text. Sellers are sending me pictures and videos and emails so that I'm able to use it. And then we also have an inspector that we can send out if we need to. So
those are great tips. I mean, the reality is we're all kind of working in a little bit of a distance market, just even from home to, you know, even if it's like 10, 15 minutes down the road. Lathe, I'm going to probably pivot here a little bit, and hopefully this doesn't get too distracting because we've got a short timetable, but what's the temperature? Like we have a culture here in Utah as investors, right? Like, you know, and I don't know, I think it's probably generally really good, but what's kind of the temperature of the local market in Vegas right now? Is it, what are you seeing as far as, sales in the last, few weeks, as far as the retail side? What are you seeing with your buyers and your wholesalers and that kind of thing? What's kind of the pulse of Vegas right now?
Well, as I said, I'm in 7 different markets, so it gives me an interesting perspective. So a lot of you are in multiple markets as well. I think across the board, a lot of markets, as I traveled to do marketing into those areas, I found that most all sellers were, and this is not a direct answer necessarily, but it will be, most all sellers were of the perception, if you traveled throughout the country, you had the metro areas booming, and nobody really had a clue that the market may be going down. Now, it looks different every time, right? You don't know what it's going to look like. It happened to be a pandemic this time. Well, it happened to be in 2001, the Twin Towers, 2008, the real estate market crashing, and this time the pandemic. So we don't know what it's going to be. We were due for that. And I think a lot of sellers were unaware of the market, losing steam, if you will, not going negative, but some markets were negative, like San Francisco. So, and what I felt as I went to these different cities and did marketing and talked to sellers, they all felt like the city was booming and it couldn't stop. Well, right before Las Vegas crashed, there was skyscraper or, high rises going up. Everybody and their brother was building and this and that, increasing inventory. And that's what we saw in Vegas, what was going on in Vegas. And so those all led me to believe that we would see a market correction. Right now, as far as the market's going here, I think there's still a lot of people feel that the market's great. It's going to come back, especially based on what Trump is saying. You know, we're going to come back full steam ahead, so on and so forth. We've seen people pull out and we've seen people come back and put it under market. There's multiple offers still happening. I think that in this current state of affairs, people are still hoping for the best, and we haven't had that big a change in market correction now. I think as this shutdown goes further, that may change, but we'll see. But my finger on the pulse right now tells me that market values haven't changed, but we'll see that as we get a little bit further into it, right? We don't see those values on the MLS changing. All we see is stuff falling out and then going back under contract. And it's too early to tell what the value shift is going to be. So, but we were doing rather well. Values were still going up about 1% to 2% a year, poised to go up 1% to 2% a year in Vegas. But that's how we've been. And a lot of the other markets, you know, that I was in was going up about 4%. 3-4%. That's why I jumped to those markets and started bringing in deals from those markets.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds similar to Utah, right? Like we've had deals, you know, multiple offers on retail stuff over the weekend. You know, the supply and demand still looks like we have way more demand than we do supply. Luke, what is your experience telling you these last few weeks about, you know, buyer mentality in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so as a big picture, I think it's too soon to really diagnose and tell what is going to happen. I mean, literally, the people I'm working with out here, we're day by day. We are talking on the phone every day, and I want to emphasize that communication is really key right now because we live day by day. We're seeing a little of everything, really. So, but in general, here in Dallas, generally speaking, we're seeing a lot of price drops, whether that be on a retail flip or a retail listing. Not like major price drops, but it seems like for us to be able to have to move stuff, you've got to drop it a little bit and then boom, it's gone, right? With wholesales, I mean, you won't believe how many wholesalers are in this town. You think there's a lot in Salt Lake or Utah. There's like 10-fold here, and almost every single one of them every day is like price reduced, price reduced.
Interesting.
And so what I really feel is going on, and I've listened to and talked to a lot of kind of nationwide gurus and stuff, is there's going to be motivated sellers. The motivated sellers are going to be either more motivated or scared and just walk away or take it off the market. But you got to buy it right. You have to buy it right now. I think the days of just putting it under contract and getting it sold are long gone, in my opinion. Now, that being said, I'm still on a lot of wholesaler emails in Utah, and I'm still seeing crazy pricing. I'm like, dude, I want to see if those things move, because out here we're seeing tons of price reduction. So it's day by day. I think it's too soon to say what the change is going to be. I think in 2 to 3 months, 3 to 6 is where we're really going to see something adjust.
I agree with both of you on that. So we have we have a lot of people on the call, and I'm going to try and filter some of the questions, but I thought this would be helpful from your guys' perspective to answer kind of this question as well. Knowing that everybody's in a different spot here, I think we have investors that, from my perception of fielding calls this last week or two especially, is we have investors that maybe have not done a deal yet or super anxious to do a deal, right? They've been learning, being mentored, right? Like they're super anxious to do a deal, and they have a different motivation, resources, and risk level than, say, the flip side, someone that has like 15 flips going on, right? And then there's the person in the middle that's maybe doing a few, trying to navigate it. And I know a lot of people are on the call that would fit one of these 3 buckets. So maybe first, Lathe, and then we'll go back and forth on this. Talk to the person right now, you know, from your experience and from where you're at, knowing that everyone's going to have different resources and abilities, but that guy that is getting all these wholesalers emails, he's, you know, he or she is super pumped to do their next deal. What advice would you give them today, you know, April 1st, not March 17th, right? Because even from then it's changed, and not being able to predict the future. What advice would you give them as far as jumping into, say, flipping or buying a rental or whatever it might be right now?
So are you talking rehabber or wholesaler?
Why don't we talk a rehabber? someone that's, you know, looking at deals, you know, wanting to get into their first rehab deal?
Okay, well, and I think this would apply for both, and I may hit on both, but I want to know exactly what you wanted me to talk about there. But like Luke was saying too, I was watching Frozen 2 the other day with my daughter for the 20,000th time, but there's that little troll in there, the little rock troll or whatever, and he said, when you can't foresee the future, all you can do is the next right thing. And it's a funny place to get, you know, maybe some insight from, but I find myself saying that a lot lately, do the next right thing. So
I love that.
we can't really assess the market, what's going on right now, because we can't really see the future. I find myself, I don't have the data points, and that's really frustrating because usually I have those data points, but I've fallen back on, again, overlaying my general philosophy on things. And it's interesting, every time I look, what should I do right now? And I'm like, I'm already doing it, right? And a lot of people maybe not be doing it right now, but as far as what you should do, you know, you've got to cut costs like you were talking about on the last call. You've got to make sure, like Luke was saying, and everybody else, is you got to buy right and you got to sell right. So you got to open up that spread, right?
So I guess more specifically, is now the right time for a guy that's never done a deal to jump in and do his first deal? And if so, or if not, how would you advise them to go about doing that?
Well, that's what I was saying right there, is you got to buy right and you got to sell right. So if you do that, then you can jump in right now. If you don't do that, it's more important now than ever to follow the guidelines and the principles that will make you successful in any market. It's just more important to follow those principles now, because you can't go out there and not know the spread of a deal, right? How much to buy, how much to sell, what the costs are going to be on the hard money, what your profit's going to be, what your after repair value is going to be. You have to have all that dialed in. If you have all that dialed in, then I think you can start right now. It's hard for a beginner to know all that. So partnering with somebody or getting this is totally not a pitch, but you need to partner with someone. You need someone who's been in the business and done there, been there, bought the shirt. So I think you can jump into the market, but you have to know how to jump into the market. And that would be my best advice, is know those numbers right. A lot of guys out there across the country, we've heard, are cutting, their ARV values by 5 to 10%. I might be a little bit more aggressive than that, right now, just because I don't know what's going on. And the good thing is there are a lot of deals. I mean, you see deals coming across, there are those people who are still pricing them ridiculous, but there are those deals that are coming across now with $120,000 spreads when before they were 50. So there are opportunities out there because sellers are jumping off the fence. They're still motivated. There's a huge bucket of them. You just got to be good at negotiations and get it under contract for the right price. That's what I would tell a new person.
I love that. That was really, really, really golden advice, as Sterling just chimed in. Luke, pick it up from there and add to it, or amplify it.
I was just going to echo everything he said, and you said it way better than I could have ever said it. I mean, right now is a time of opportunity. It really is. But what I was going to say is you need to leverage the experience of others. Right now couldn't be a better time to have a mentor, to have a coach, to have just leverage the experience of others that have been there, done that. Because like Lathe was saying, you have to know your numbers. If you don't know them, I would not do it, But it's such a big opportunity right now. And if you're a newbie and you've never done a deal and you want to jump in, I mean, like I said, in my town, everybody's reducing their prices. And I usually love it when I see those emails, because that's when I call them up and be like, okay, the wholesaler is motivated to sell me their deal. I'm going to make an offer. It's not going to be what they're asking, but I'm going to make an offer. You know what I mean? But I always think it's a good time to invest, but always you should leverage the experience of others more now than ever, right?
I think that's great advice. So anybody out there that's, maybe just done one deal, or they're super, super nervous to do their first deal, but they feel like now is the right time. I think that's great advice. Rely on the experience of others. And maybe this will go hand in hand with, kind of the other extreme, which maybe doesn't need as much, help or explanation, because, those that have been doing a lot of deals for a while, maybe have a little bit more perspective and capabilities. But you say you're, you Luke, right? Like, or Lathe, right? Like what how are, and you kind of just answered it, but take the other extreme. You've been flipping or wholesaling or been in the game for 10, 15 years. You know, you've been through 2008, you know, what are you doing with your own cash, your own money? And then how could you maybe, as someone that's in maybe our shoes that has been around the block a little bit, how could you help that new investor? Because now maybe you have the time, whereas a month ago you'd have been like, oh, I don't need to partner with anyone. But how are you adapting, you know, given your experience and where you're at?
You asking that to me now?
Yeah, let's go. Sorry, Lathe, go for it.
No.
We'll go back and
Yeah. You know, I don't have more time because, again, I've been practicing social distancing forever.
Yeah.
I work from home, do virtual. The leads have increased, you know, so I'm rolling out several programs right now on models to partner with people, either as, you know, splitting the deal in those different areas, whether they're real estate agents or whatever. Time is still limited, right? I can only work with a limited few. Because I just don't have the time. That's, you know, but there are tremendous opportunities out there. But I think Jason Medley said this on another thing the other day, and he runs a mastermind, Collective Genius, and said now is not the time to go out there pounding your chest, which that, you know, that's what I was saying before he said it. So I thought that was great information. You know, we don't want to take advantage of people. We want to ethically help people in this situation, which is what we always do. So, I don't know. Do you want me to expand on anything else?
No, you know what? For that, like that advice to guys that have been or experienced, I think ring really true to me is now is not the time to be pounding your chest. Now is the time to get creative in different partnerships that you maybe weren't as comfortable doing before with, say, an agent, or really leverage other people's abilities and strengths with your experience, maybe. Yeah, is that maybe what I understood?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think that you have to. There's a lot of guys who are, let's go take advantage of this, and they're buying everything and anything, and there's going to be some drastic mistakes made because they're not doing the next right thing. They're not listening to the market. They just think they know everything. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people I've heard talk that way. I'm just going to scoop everything up. There's some people back completely, some people who are still doing it, some people who won't do it until it returns, and other people is just making not very smart decisions right now. So tread cautiously out there. There is a lot of opportunity. I mean, there's going to be a ton of seller financing deals to be had with people going late probably. And so there's just a lot of opportunity, but you got to stick to the principles and adhere to those when you jump in. But don't look at this as I'm going to just go out there and rape the world. And I hate to use that term, but a lot of guys, it just sounds like that's what they're saying. And that's never what I was here to do. I was here to be a win-win. There's people who need help and I can provide that. And if it's a win-win, go forward with it. But right now is not the time to send the message to take advantage of folks, but to ethically help people.
Lathe, I think that is gold right there, those comments. And, you know, everybody that's joining us, some of this is a different perspective and maybe it feels like, but these are what we need to be reminded of weekly, right? Like go back to the basics. Think, you know, don't think you know everything. Now is the time to not be pounding your chest. What did you say, Lathe, that do the next right thing? I think that's going to be the motto of this call. Do the next right thing. Luke, you're up.
Yeah,
Add to that, man.
You know, it's really hard to follow Lathe, I got to be honest, because everything he's saying is exactly what I'm thinking. So
okay, we'll go back in reverse order for the last half of the call.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, but I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing, right? I used to be, and probably a lot of people who know me on this call know that I used to be a very aggressive buyer, and to the point, to probably where I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned in the past with flipping houses, where I have completely, for me, put on the brakes as far as flipping. I'm not going to buy a flip right now unless somebody has the deal of the century. I'm not even going to look at it, right? And because I've built relationships with people, I get to look at a lot of deals from a lot of different people. I'm not flipping right now. I'm going to wait and see what happens, right? So that's what I'm doing. I listened to Matt Atkinson shared, and I think you were going to hit it earlier, that Keith
Yeah.
Cunningham. Man, I listened to that and it was gold. But like, I am saving money and cutting expenses, both business and personal, you know, and we've had the opportunity to do that because all of our kids aren't going to their activities anymore. So we're not paying for those. We're not going out to eat. So it hasn't been too hard. But those are some of the things I'm doing. But just, yeah, buying it right. And I think now, and I think a lot of people in this community have talked about this for a while, is where the relationships that you've formed and bonded are really going to come into play to be able to wholesale deals, move deals, communicate with each other, and do things the right way ethically is going to come into play, if that makes sense. Because I think for a long time, there's been a bad stigma with wholesalers in Utah, and they're just taking all the meat off the bone and this and that, right? Well, hey, guess what? The tables might have turned a little bit right now, right?
No, I agree. And let's be fair to the wholesalers. The only reason why they're doing that is because there's been a demand for it, right?
Sure.
Like we're the ones that are guilty of that because
Oh,
we're
I'm all
bidding them
about it.
up,
I'm all
right?
about it.
Yeah, you know. So I want to give credit to the wholesalers. I don't, you know, it's like people complain like, well, Michael Jordan makes so much money. He's like, well, everybody quit buying his shoes, right? Like you're not going to make any money if no one buys his shoes. So anyway, no, I know where you're going, Luke. So, all right, one other thing I wanted to touch on, because I've been reading a lot about this this last week from the different coaching programs that I subscribe to and attend. And again, you know, one area where I'm going to not lay off the gas on expenses is, you know, good quality coaching and advice and mentors and that kind of thing. That stuff's going to carry us because we're going to need to rely on that experience of people that have been through it, either if it's just they've been through it psychologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, right? Like we need to rely on those people that we can look to as mentors. But and think about this while I introduce it, Lathe and Luke. Think about your tools that you have that you've used in the past. And Lathe, you kind of mentioned this on some calls we privately had in the last couple of weeks. What are some new opportunities that you're seeing either from, you know, personal development or things you're implementing in your business that maybe were tools that were in the shed before that you're kind of repurposing? And the point of this is thinking, what are some new positives? What are the positives and the new innovations that are coming out of this situation that you never would have had or thought of before that are forcing you to kind of adapt and grow as it's helping your business?
That's a good question. Well, I think now,
and maybe I'll guide you. You talked a little bit about you, and we don't need to get into the big details, but you talked a little bit about how your wholesaling business kind of changed a little bit, kind of more from the competition, but now it's changing because of the current environment. Whereas you were doing a lot of pre-selling with TV, or you know, or think about it from that standpoint. What things are you? I mean, the point of this is for everybody to think of like, what things have you maybe put on the back burner that were in the past that you didn't think were going to be valuable, but now are like ultra valuable. Like Zoom's a perfect example, right? Like we were never using this before, and now it's like a hot commodity, right? Like, can you think of something that you've been using in your business that, you know, that's just gold to you now that you maybe took it for granted before?
Oh yeah. So, you know, I think a lot of us guys who've been in the business for a while, you know, something starts, it's working, right? And then you don't change it, and all of a sudden you get hit up beside the head and you're like, oh God, you know, where did my cheese go, right? And I think they wrote that book about 15, 20 years ago when I was in my 20s, and somebody moved, the guy who now is 60 years old, they moved his cheese. Who did it? Well, us, right? The millennials, I guess. Now, not the millennials, X generation, right? Now we have the millennials. And I think our cheese got moved in a lot of ways, and a lot of us became dinosaurs. And so the text messaging, the outbound calling, the social media, most of these younger guys, I don't even like to refer to them as millennials because sometimes people think that's a negative connotation. It's not. They're very smart. They've been born with the social media shovel in their hand, right? I have to go and pick up, actually it is their hand. They were born with it attached. And, you know, us dinosaurs a little bit have to pick up the shovel and learn how to use it. And so there's a lot of things like Zoom and this sort of stuff that a lot of that generation is using now. And it moved all of our cheese, and we're like, okay, where did it go? Why is direct mail not working? Why is maybe TV and radio not working? It's because they're hitting them harder and faster and cheaper than we ever could do it before. So there's one thing that I've learned is the monetary competitive advantage. I'm like, holy cow, I have the monetary competitive advantage. I can outspend anybody in marketing and still survive and make a damn good living doing it and systematize everything. But that didn't work for me when somebody else's monetary competitive advantage got so low. And then, well, now it's like, okay, let's shift to that tool that they're using. And now let's apply some more money to it and some more experience to it, overlay what I know onto that. So a lot of people are using text messages and ringless voicemail and outbound calls, illegally, quite frankly, and they're going to get hit by it. Follow the rules. You'll still be successful. Social media is a big tool. Facebook, the groups are a big tool. Searching for deals there, searching for investors there, searching for boots on the ground there are tools that we all use, but we don't know how to use them. Spend some time to figure that out because that's where the cheese is at. And, and I'm not telling you not to do direct mail, not to do TV. You have to have a blended rate of all these things, even finding deals on the MLS. And so those are some of the little tidbits and the things that I would recommend to do getting into this new market and going forward and trying to find the cheese.
I love that. Who moved my cheese? The other thing I was talking with somebody about yesterday on the phone was I think simply picking up the phone and talking to people will be more powerful than ever that it is right now. Like someone was asking me, hey, what's the best way to market right now? I thought, I don't know, like who are your customers right now? Are they raving fans and are you doing a good job for them? Well, pick up the phone and ask them for referrals. Like there's probably a way to do it, but like who would it, like that's just, we're always looking for, super, so maybe some of the most back to the basic things are going to be what carries us forward going on. But I loved all your comments. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, man. So again, I've got to echo everything Lathe said. But listen, so I am going back to basics. And what you said, Matt, I am calling people and I'm using all those tools, Facebook, text messaging, cold calling. And you said the one thing that you weren't, cutting was good marketing. That's the one thing I'm doubling down on. So I wasn't cold calling for a bit. I'm cold calling again. I talked with, and again, this brings in communication on almost a daily basis with one of my partners. We're like doubling our amount of text messages we're sending every day, right? And I have been busier in the last 2 to 3 weeks than I have been in years. And what we're doing is creating a system around finding people on Facebook, asking them for their phone number, and then calling them. It's, you know what I mean? It's so simple, but I am talking to, and talk about going back to basics. I'm tracking my phone calls. I'm tracking my text messages. These are personal ones, not like, the mass text messages and mass cold calls, but I'm tracking how many emails I'm sending. I'm time blocking, and I'm just calling people and talking to people. I have looked at more deals per day in the last 2 weeks than I have ever. And that goes back to what you were saying, Matt. It's like, just pick up the phone and talk to people. I'm like, hey, I saw you on the Facebook group. What are you doing, man? Are you a wholesaler? Cool. How long have you been doing it? What do you need? Here's what I'm doing. How can we work together? And you will be surprised how many people have said, dude, I'm so glad you called me. Thank you so much, man. I need some help with X, Y, and Z. And again, It goes back to, hey, if we're going to add value to people, it's going to come back to, and we're trying to, again, systematically create a process of doing just that to do JVs, deal splits, right? We have a back-end system that's robust that a lot of these newer guys that are doing the RVMs, the texting, don't have. They can mass market, but don't know how to negotiate or don't know what to do with the contract once they get it, or can't maximize on the back end. So we're providing that as well as training, coaching them and helping them through the process, and then we're able to split a deal with them. So we're finding a lot of deals that way. But definitely networking is huge to me. Social media, cold calling, texting. We doubled down on texting, and I brought cold calling back.
I love it. That reinforces what a lot of people on prior calls have said is, especially I remember Clay said it pretty definitively on the first call we did was, what I'm not doing is reducing my spend on marketing, right? Like what's working for your business, keep making that work. Quick follow-up to you, Luke. What specifically, how are you tracking? Because I think that's really important. Like what you don't track, or what you don't measure, you can't improve. How are like the actual, like how are you actually tracking it? Do you have a software?
Yes, paper.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I have a paper, and I was actually thinking about, I wanted to share this and show this with everybody, and I'll share it with everybody. It's a simple, like, check off the box of how many calls you made, check off the box of how many texts you did, right? Like simple stuff. And then I've got a little section that says deals. How many deals did I look at today? How many offers did I make, right? A simple piece of paper, right? And just keep track of it every day and go back over the past 2 weeks and see what you're doing. Can you do more? Can you do less? How can you spend more time doing that and adjust your time accordingly, man?
Awesome. And John Prince is chiming in. He remembers one of the first wholesale he did. He split it with Luke, and he got it done. So
whoever wants to bring deals over here, let's go. Come on, all day.
I love it. I love it. So that actually brings up something to maybe kind of, and Lathe and Luke, I think we could go for days. So I apologize if I cut some of your answers off quick or whatever. I'm trying to kind of blast this and get as much content in an hour as possible. So you guys have been so awesome and really provided some awesome answers. But one thing I've noticed is I think this last week, I finally personally kind of got into a new groove of a routine. And this will kind of go off of what you were talking about, Luke, as far as tracking things and stuff like that. But, and Lathe, maybe your world hasn't changed that much because, you've been kind of living this way. But talk about your routine, just like your typical day, like, and I think we're all going to learn something from this, and then I'll have you do the same, Luke, and then I'll maybe share it, and then we'll kind of end with some final comments. But Lathe, what's a successful day for you look like? What are some things you do? Like even just maybe kind of run through it from top to bottom, and I'm sure we'll all pick up a gem as far as like, oh, I could be doing that, or I could be doing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you think of my business, or I think of my business kind of like, a bucket of milk, freshly, milked milk, from the milk cow, right? And all the cream rises up to the top. So I don't really want to spend my time with anything that could be done by someone else better or more efficiently or actually get it done, right? So I've set up my system to where, when we generate leads, I spend most of my time generating marketing. So I'm more of a marketer than anything else. And let's say closer, salesperson on the phone. Like sometimes we want to cut out things that in our business so we have more free time. However, doing that, we really decrease the amount of money that we make. So you don't want to remove yourself from something before you have something in place that's as good or better, or if you go volume rather than bulk. Which I mean, are you going to pick up bigger deals because you're closing it, or are you going to pick up smaller deals because somebody else is closing it, but they better be more volume based. So that being said, what I've done is I've set up my systems to where, we got the intake person, we got, or the person who, we got the leads coming in, and then we've got people calling those leads, and then we've got myself or someone else getting on the phone and closing those deals after we review what's going on with that business. So I and anybody else I hire can look at a lead and say, yeah, that's a deal. So if 100 leads come in, 20 are possibilities, which one am I going to call first? So contrary to popular belief, it's like, just get on the phone and start calling. I don't take that approach. I try to get everybody to do as much research on the lead that I can view and I can see that's a deal. And for example, just the other day, I got on the phone and I closed a deal in 16 minutes when I said, yeah, that came across that's a deal. Okay, it's got to be closed. Let me get on the phone, close it in 16 minutes. It's going to make me $25,000, right? It's a wholesale deal in 2 weeks. So I've set up my business to where I can roll out of bed at any point given time and get on the phone and make some money, right? Not that I do that, but I have a lot of flexibility in my business, and I wouldn't recommend people doing that. But I've set up my business for a marketing engine as opposed to a prospecting engine where I have to be the slave to my business. I want to be the person who is doing things when I want to do them rather than when I have to do them. So maybe I'm not such a good example for a lot of people because folks are just getting into the business and they have to do more of the prospecting and the reactive approach rather than the offensive strategy. Yeah.
Luke, as you answer, I'll maybe pitch it to you a slightly different way. As you've modified your routine, and maybe you haven't, I don't know if you're working at home or not, but how have you adjusted to like a new routine? I think routine is so important, right? Like, are there any tips or like hacks you've discovered for, being more productive. I mean, you said you're working, these last 3 weeks, and I agree with you. I feel like I could be working 24 hours a day if I'm not careful. I'm just so busy, kind of mostly playing defense right now, right? Like, but what any hacks you're finding successful?
It's the same stuff that everybody's always talked about, right? It's time blocking. And like Lathe again, I've got certain things that I think that I should be spending my time on versus not, right? I don't have my systems set up as well as Lathe's probably. I'm not a systems guy, but what I am is a massive action taker guy. And I just do that to a default. But slowly but surely, I'm actually spending time on putting the processes in place. So I'm not the one responding to the thousands of text messages anymore. I'm not the one cold calling. I've got a partner who's helping push everything to the CRM. Now, if those, I can look at those quickly again, like he said, and know that those are deals. But the one thing I've adjusted is I'm spending, like, while I'm working or looking through deals, listening to all these other people talk, shows like this, right? All the different webinars. And so I feel like education has kind of re-entered my life a little bit more than it probably, it probably should have been there all along. I mean, I've always been, into learning and reading books, and I've got thousands of books, but I've taken that, kind of regained it and brought it back. And I'm reading an amazing book that I wanted to share called Fanatical Prospecting. And I love talking to people. I just love talking to people. So for me, like I'm having somebody like a VA or somebody that works with us tee me up to call people. So all I'll have to do is get on and call these people, right? And I know instantly if it's going to be a dead call in 5 minutes, and I just hang up and move, right? But if it's somebody that is going to be a legitimate relationship, I want to nurture that and spend time. And I love talking. We could talk real estate and shop all day long, right? We went to lunch. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing is I've just kind of entered in that, brought back that education. And also we have more time to kind of think about our goals and get clarity on that, because we have so much time. It's like, and maybe those are changing right now, right? Yep. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, what are my goals? Those were my goals. I don't know if those are still my goals anymore, right? So just reflecting on that has kind of come to the surface as well lately.
Oh man, you guys, yeah, I think we can end it right there. I've thought a lot about that. I want to be changing, like not changing who I'm thinking I want to be in the future, but I have been consciously thinking about where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 3 years? What would my future self be telling me about my decisions I'm making today, both personally as well as, financially or in business, right? So I think that may help guide, especially even when you look at a deal, like what would my future self tell me if I'm consciously taking on a deal now that looks thin today, and we've all acknowledged that we may have, a softening, like would my future self really be pissed at me because I took a deal that was kind of thin, that I was anxious about, that I was emotional about, or would my future self, applaud me for being a little bit more cautious right now, like Lath says, doing the next right thing. So anyway, we're going to run out of time. So I want to give both Lathe and Luke one last kind of final shout out. And then everybody that's interested, I know Lathe and Luke are both very open and willing. Probably the best way to reach them is maybe on Facebook or joining one of their groups, and Lathe, you can kind of comment on that too, but maybe give us your kind of, quick final sign off and pump up, and then we'll have Luke do the same, and then we'll do this again next week.
Cool. Well, I would just say that, now is not the time for speculative buying, right? And that's what you're kind of talking about. Some people will say, well, the market's going up, so I can buy this a little bit thinner. Now is not that time. You've got to reverse engineer that. Where do I think the market might be going? And, taking a 5 to 10% reduction on that, or putting it under contract and then going back and renegotiating is good. But don't make any rash decisions, whether that be cutting market or not cutting market. I know every time I go to bed and wake up, I'm like, okay, what should I do with marketing? But I'm letting it tell me how many people are coming in, but that's only one side of the coin. You've got to be able to find, if you're in wholesaling, to find those buyers. If you're in rehabbing, it's the in buyers as well. So you really got to keep an eye on where that market is, where it's going, because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble, but not being afraid to go back and tell the homeowner what's going on. I negotiated like $45,000 extra $1,000 last month on deals that were already under contract. So if we had, let's just say, $100,000, right, of income, then that income got expanded to $145,000, just for an example, more because of the coronavirus. So I actually made more money last month, hedging my bets, going back and saying, I don't know where this market's going to be. I don't know if I can get financing for this. I've got to readjust things. And so we need a little bit better deal on this. How much can you help me out with this? I had one person say, well, would you take 90? And we're at 106. I didn't even say the number. They just come up with a $16,000 reduction in why. And I'm like, that's fair. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll send you an addendum. So don't be afraid to ask for help from anyone, the seller, the buyer, the lender, your credit card companies, your mortgage companies, coaches like me and Luke and Matt. Don't be afraid to ask. And then, you know, what can come out of it, you know? I guess that's my ending pitch there. And I'm not by any words telling people to call me. I'm just giving out information. So.
No, I love it. And Luke, before you, I just want to echo what you said. Now is the time, like what you know, even your credit card companies, now is the time to reevaluate everything that you're spending money on and everything that you have under contract and every deal that you're doing, right? Like really nothing is off limits. And I like how you hammered the point before in an ethical, you know, opportunistic way, not to try and pound your chest or take advantage of somebody, but in an ethical, open and honest, transparent way. So,
and one other thing I would add is continue to sharpen the saw. Take this time to get new education, like Luke and you were saying, but sharpen the saw of what you already know. Brush up on those sales skills. Brush up on the business stuff. I mean, I'm creating and implementing new systems all the time in my business to expand my buyer pool, automate that, expand my seller pool, automate that, because growth will come and you have to be positioned to take advantage of that. What do they say? Opportunity comes when preparedness meets success, or opportunity comes when you're prepared, you know? So.
Awesome. Luke.
Yeah, so I do want people to call me because I want to help them. I'm not trying to sell anything, but call me all day because that's what I love to do. This is the time where I think we need to be fostering our relationships, communicating with our teams, communicating with our buyers, our sellers. People are open and talking. I'm doing a little bit of calling myself to some sellers that are, you know, already past the first layer of motivation, and they're open and joking. And we're talking about this thing that's going on, and people are a lot more willing to talk, you know, whether they're going to sell it or not. But I think that's where the human touch kind of comes in, right? And relationships, how it's such a key. Definitely leverage the experience of others for the newbies. Going back to basics is totally what it's all about. Man, you know, it's just double down on whatever's working, right? I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities in a lot of different sectors of the real estate investing. So for example, I'm building a relationship with a guy here in town who specializes in lease options, right? And I'm going to have a ton of those leads come in and we can build a relationship and make a lot of money together. I don't want to build that business. I've looked at it and I know other people like that one, but I don't want to do that. I want to do what I'm good at. So there's a lot of opportunities. I think sit back, kind of relax, work hard, go do what you're going to do, but look at what opportunities they are. Cause I'm just kind of sitting back and looking, right? It's like, what's going to happen here, right? Can I do that? Can I do that? Right? So just kind of keep your eyes out and be ready. Be ready. I think in 3 to 6 months, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And I'm stoked. Thanks, Matt, for putting this on. I'm glad to be here.
You guys, that was awesome. I'm going to go back through my notes. I think I took more notes on this call than I have in the other ones. And I mentioned a note in the comments. I could literally do 3 or 5 consistent hours with both Lathe and Luke. And Lathe especially has so much knowledge, and he says it in such a succinct and simple and positive way that I really feel like I kind of shortchanged both of you with only an hour. But I really appreciate you both. You guys are awesome. Have a successful day, and let's keep making our futures greater than our past. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks for everyone joining the call.
Thank you.